Okay, good evening, welcome. Thank you to everyone for being here. I'll call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. Would you please do roll call?
Mayor Rodham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Perry?
Here.
Councilmember Caffey?
Here.
Councilmember Walker?
Here.
Councilmember Oliveris? Here. Councilmember Starnes?
Here.
Councilmember Melton?
Here. Would you please stand and join me for the pledge? Hey, you have a Councilman Walker doing yours? Okay, Councilman Walker, would you lead us in prayer, please? Starnes. Don't be mistaken. Please bow your heads as we celebrate the Thanksgiving season, and I share this prayer. Dear God, we thank you that you make all things new. During this Thanksgiving season, we are grateful for our community, our citizens, and for your many blessings in our lives. This evening, we ask for your guidance and wisdom to be present with us during our deliberations. May we leave here this evening striving to do better and be better in word and deed. And may your kindness and grace walk with us as we come to the close of this year. We pray for the Rockdale ISD, the Rockdale Police Department, our county, state, and national leaders. We pray for Trevor Everidge, his family, and his healthcare givers. And we pray for the family and friends of Chris Flores as we pause for a moment of silence in his memory. Amen. Thank you, Councilman Starnes. Before we get to citizens' communications, I do have something I'd like to say. I would like to extend, and I can safely say I speak for all the council and Tim as well, to extend my deepest gratitude to our Rockdale Police Department, our Rockdale Volunteer Fire Department, our EMS, the Milam County Sheriff's Department, State Parks and Wildlife, Department of Public Safety. Dealt with a very tragic event this past weekend, a very dangerous event. I'm very sad to know that was the life of one young man lost and another young man in the hospital recovering. But I am thankful that none of our emergency responders were injured at that very dangerous scene. So again, thank you to them for their dedication to serving and protecting our citizens. We're now at citizens communications. Ben. Thank you. Mr. Neil Wetstein,
Yes, sir.
you are signed up twice, sir.
Yes.
You have two topics.
Well, actually, I have three, but two are at IOOF, sir.
Okay. You have 3 minutes, sir. Would you like to approach the mic?
I sure will, unless everybody can hear me here.
I can hear you fine.
All righty. As an irregular guy, retired guy, who lives here in Rockdale, I'm always out for the best of the community because I'm a citizen here. And if I was one to be here, come here and check out Rockdale, I want to know the correct population of our beautiful city on every avenue that you can come in and out of this city. It's been that way since the census. I know DPS handles this or DOT handles this, but maybe somebody needs to be a point person and see if we can get this taken care of. Now at IOOF, I have, many of us have family and friends there. I am really disappointed that the main entrance of IOOF, concreted, has got rut holes a foot deep on either side of it. Now, I know the rain washes out everything else, but maybe the entrance would do nice. And something else. Scott's Tree Service was down there last year after this ice storm took out trees all over the place. I was down there in August because I watched them cut down a beautiful oak tree. We have two citizens of this community, Alton Dutch Backhouse and his beautiful bride, Betty, who are no longer here. Where that beautiful pine stands above them, there are 3 branches, vicious, dangerous spears that could come down. You mean to tell me this citizen, this group of people, this town, cannot honor them by getting Scots back here for a minimal charge or free to take those 3 limbs down? Just suggesting. Folks, thank you for your time. Enjoy. I'm all glad you had a chance to see me tonight. Thank you.
Glad to see you, Neil. Could I ask one request to you, sir?
Yes.
When you see those types of issues, would you do me a favor and call down to City Hall and request a service ticket be put in for that specific issue, and that will be turned over to our Public Works Department, and then from that point, if it doesn't get taken care of, call me,
Gotcha.
okay?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir, you're welcome. Richard Shell, you have an item on the agenda. Richard, did you want to talk?
Yeah, just briefly.
Certainly.
I wanted to, over there?
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll do that.
You are afforded 3 minutes.
3 minutes, that's more than I need, more than I need. So I want to thank City Manager Kelty for bringing this issue forwards and Council for taking it up today and taking a look at it. We have an ongoing issue with the drain that's in the state right-of-way, so it's a little beyond our reach, something we can deal with. There's rubble in the sewer line, and it appears it was broken during the earlier construction. I know we've had trouble trying to get the state contractor to come back out and fix that, so just want to tell you all thank you very much. It's the bookshop has been very thankful for Public Works. They've come out several times, the hydrojet, to clear that line out. So just thanks to them. I just want to recognize them for that, and thanks everybody for considering this item.
I appreciate you bringing that forward for council to hear. I did meet with City Manager Kelty on that last week, and we discussed that in detail, so hopefully we will be able to bring that to resolution for you.
All right,
folks.
thank you so much, man.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
All right, item 5, presentations. We will now receive a hot fund presentation from the Rockdale Fair Association for post-event, the 2024 fair. Christy?
Good evening. How are y'all?
Good, thank you.
So y'all have some conflicting numbers in front of you. The event that I initially submitted for was the 2023 fair. I always do the prior year because we're still paying bills for the 2024 fair, and we still have money coming in for the 2024 fair. But I sent to Shanna last week when she asked for it some preliminary numbers for 2024, so I do have that for you. And we basically, I'm just going to be real honest with you, we killed it this year for the 2024 fair. We brought in more money than we have made in a fair since George Strait. I'm assuming we made more when George Strait was here. I'm way too young for that, so I can't tell you for sure. But last year, I was bragging on last year's fair. Last year was our second highest grossing fair that we'd ever had. This year, we blew last year out of the water. So it was an amazing fair. I think part of that was due to Russell. I was really cursing him that night when we were trying to deal with that crowd, but Saturday night was absolutely ridiculous. We had people in town from, I know we had a fan club here from Oklahoma that had like 40 or 50 people. We had a fan club that drove in from Nebraska. They couldn't find a hotel room. They slept in their cars in the parking lot, which a lot of people might have because you couldn't get out of our parking lot. We had the amount of people that were in town for this fair was absolutely crazy. I'm hoping it's not a one-off thing. I think Russell is trying to prepare people not to get used to that because we really did hit it big with Braxton Keith, and we caught him right before he blew up. So we wouldn't afford him for what he's charging right now. I also kind of feel like we knocked out of the park because of Braxton Keith, but last year's crowd, I've kind of prepared our fair board. The crowd that we had last year, I think those are the kind of crowds that we can expect for the fair going forward. I think that the Fair Association is definitely seeing the growth that Rockdale and Milam County and Thorndale and, the Taylor Way, I think that we're seeing a lot of those here too. So this year's crowd did point out some weaknesses that we have. There's some maintenance projects that we know that we have to work on. We know that parking for I don't know how many of you were out there, but we can't keep ignoring the parking. I think that's going to take a partnership with us and the city because we don't own the parking lot. There's some things that we can do, some things that we can't do. So hopefully this year we can kind of sit down and get some of that worked out. We've got some plans, we've got some ideas. I think the parking right now is our biggest issue. Money-wise, the livestock barn has to be replaced. I know that we don't have the money to replace the whole thing right now, but we are planning on getting started on that next year. So the income that we have, I've already got it planned on how I want to spend it. This, however, is my last year's president. Mr. Burkhead will be presenting this to y'all for the next 2 years. So if you have questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer those.
I have a comment. Mm-hmm. Your level of detail of reporting is fabulous,
Thank you.
and I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And council, I would employ you to make this the standard of reporting for any and every bit of hot funds that are distributed.
Hey, listen, if I'm going to come begging for money, I'm going to tell you everything you might need to know.
I appreciate that, and I do have some concerns over the way hot funds are distributed. That'll be discussed later. But thank you for the level of detail in your report.
I had a quick question. It was everything we heard about Saturday night. I was home that night. I didn't make it past the barbecue cook-off, but everything they said was great. In a nutshell, entertainment checks $30,000. What is in a nutshell? You have to break it down. What is that? I see stoning. I see.
We have to pay them we have to pay them their deposit usually anywhere from March to June.
Okay.
So we do those by cashier checks, and I buy those in bulk in the beginning, and then we pay them the remainder of their balance that night after they finish performing.
And then the last page, was that one you're saying is not accurate right now, the 2005?
Which-
2025, well, it's the ones that count. It says increase for 50th year, start of the barn roof repair. That one there is not accurate.
That is what we're looking at spending next year.
So entertainment will be a lot more than next
We're
year.
looking at, we really want to raise our entertainment budget next year because it's our 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of want to do it at big. The problem that we have, and Russell, correct me if I'm wrong, with entertainment is we're at 90, 93 right now, I think, and that doesn't include production and advertising, things like that. But you can either pay $30,000 for an entertainer, or 30, 35, 40,000, or you can pay $150,000. There's such a big, huge jump. So I'm hoping that raising it to 150 is going to help us because 150 covers Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Yeah. But it's just like it's Russell. I mean, I can't tell y'all how hard this guy works. You just got to hit them. You got to know. I know they're going to be big by October, so we got to get them whenever we can still afford them, and then hope they blow up.
Well, you need to keep the pressure on Russell.
I don't know how many times he tried to quit this year. But I'm kind of a bully, so he ended up not quitting. I was ready for him to quit by about 10 o'clock Saturday. The crowd out there, I've not worked that hard. I've been on the sport for over 20 years, and I've not worked that hard. It was absolutely crazy. It was fun, but it was crazy.
The title of the first page is 2024 hot expenses, and then it has all the detail of the pageants, the rodeo, advertising.
Yes.
Is that a sum And then at the top it says 108,000.
The summary is at the top. Underneath that is where I broke down those numbers.
Okay.
Those are the events that Barbara always wanted me to spell out the events. And if y'all want a different way, let me know that happened that weekend. You know, it obviously takes a lot more to put on the fair. Our security is 11,000. Maintenance for right now, I think we're at 82,000 this year for the park. But these are the expenses that are related directly to what we did out there that weekend.
Basically, there's $2,500 that you still have not yet paid.
For advertising, I'm thinking there's about 25. They usually send their bills in late. The biggest discrepancy with our reporting is that last year we were collecting sale money all the way through May of the following, or this year, we collected sale money for the 2023 fair all the way up through May. We have to cut those checks in December. But then the money sometimes, you know, we have to chase this down for some of these people.
Can you answer one question? I did have one question when I was reviewing this. It's added money to Kaylee Benson, and then I did a little research on Kaylee Benson. It looks like she did something for the rodeo.
Yes.
Maybe the barrel timers or something?
No,
or-
added money. You have your contract that you have to pay.
Okay.
But then to get the big name bull riders to show up, if they have to decide between coming to Rockdale this weekend or going to Taylor the following weekend, they're going to go where they get the most money. So we try to raise sponsorship dollars so that we can throw added money in there to try to entice them to come in. We're only liable for the contracted amount, which I think is $9,500 for the rodeo.
Okay.
But we try to raise sponsorship dollars to get added money if we can because we want to get those bigger name bull riders to show up. It's mainly bull riders that kind of require added money.
So I think, Tim, it would be valuable before next year's fair for y'all to sit down, or with James Burkhead or whoever's going to manage this once you're prepared to request your funds. Because there are some expenditures on here that I do have some potential concerns about that
Okay.
may not be under the hot fund qualification.
Okay.
So I think those need to be vetted out and understood. And I'm not implying that there's any negligence done by
Yeah,
all
yeah,
means. Just
yeah.
maybe due to a lack of understanding on our side and on the Rockdale Fair side as well.
Understood? We can do that.
What was hot funds this year? What did y'all ask for?
25, 27, I think it was. It was about 20% of what our expenses for hot funds related, what we were told hot funds related events were.
Okay. And it could be I'm reading this report wrong.
Well, I think what throws you off is the title of this would lead someone that didn't know to think that hot funds was used for all of this stuff, and that's not.
Oh, no.
Okay.
That's
No.
not-
That was my perception, so
No,
I
no.
retract my previous comment.
No, I would love to get money for all of this stuff. if you want to talk about that.
But I think it's important, so if somebody comes in and audits and says, where'd y'all's hot funds go? If they look at this, they're gonna say, wait a minute, this does not qualify, this doesn't qualify.
Yeah.
Right.
We need to massage that and make sure
Yes. And that might be me over-reporting what we're doing because I give y'all a financial statement for the fair, and then I try to give you something separate that's related just to hot funds.
Okay.
Because I kind of want y'all to know what we're doing with all of our money.
that, sure.
Council, any other questions? Tim?
Great job.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job, Russell.
Congratulations. Congratulations to the entire fair board.
If y'all see Russell, make sure you know he's stuck. He's not going anywhere. Thank y'all. Appreciate
Don't
it.
worry about him.
Hey, can you do me a favor?
Okay, hot
I
fun
do, yes.
presentation from the,
Yes,
I'm sorry,
will do.
Tim, go ahead.
Will do.
From the Rockdale Community Market for the Vampire Ball.
Okay, so I wish I could be more like her in the presentation. It would be helpful for me going forward maybe to have a presentation that you guys want presented back because there's not really any clear, and this is our first time doing it, so, but there's not any really clear, so it was like, this is what we need to know back, and so that's what Deborah prepared for you. So that's why you've got what you got, but
That's a great comment, and if I could just get you to pause 1 second. Chrissy, would it be possible for you to email Shanna your template for how you tracked hot
Yes.
funds? And that way, maybe we could come up with a general template that we could share with hot fund recipients to have the reporting done, standardized and done on that template.
yeah, that would be fantastic. So I'm Georgia, for those of you who don't know. Our vampire ball, it was it was interesting. It was great. I think we were successful. I think that we learned a lot. I think we grew from it. And based on our responses from the guests, so I sat at the front and asked, well, what we did was have tickets. And they had to give me their name and their zip code so that at the end of the night, we could count how many people and from where they came. And so we had about 19 people from outside of areas, and we had with what we could figure, about 14 people stay. So I would like to say one thing, though, just for a suggestion maybe for next year. I'm new to all this, but when we met with Mr. Kelty, he explained to us about what the tap house had just came and asked for. And so when, I'm assuming, but this is assumption that can only be right, when the softball girls soft league came and met with Mr. Kelty, he used our example for them. It's all public information. I'm getting sensitive. I'm so sorry. It's all public information, and I know that. We all know that. Nobody's trying to hide anything. But because of that, I do feel that the vampire ball was hurt a little bit because they lashed out to about us so bad on Facebook. And finally, I met with Helen at a store just out of the blue. And from across the store, she yelled, "So, how mad are you really?" And I'm like, "Dude, you're from home. You're a small town, really?" So I said, "Could you at least take it down?" And she did. So I just don't know. I feel like that had an effect. And no offense against you because you're doing your job. But maybe we could do it without mentioning names because my daughter doesn't get involved in a lot of stuff. And it was just too much. Anyway, thank you so much for believing in us to do the vampire ball. We had a great time doing it. I'm happy that we could do it. Any questions?
Well, I'll make a comment. I think it
So
was a
sorry.
great event. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend because it was Battle of the Bell.
Exactly.
And I think that was maybe a reason why you didn't have a big turnout as well.
A bigger turnout, yeah.
A bigger turnout.
Yeah, I know
And that's
Kyle.
probably the
Kyle was
reason.
able to come for a little bit, and then he ran off to the ball. So there were some people that were able to do that. I do understand your
Yeah.
son was there. Hello,
Well,
I wouldn't go to the vampire ball
I
either.
got invited to, that the council got invited to before. So I would say allow yourself some grace. I think it was a great event. I think a lot of other people would have attended if they didn't have the Battle of the Bells
Yeah,
to go to.
definitely. That's one of the things we learned was timing,
I think
as
that's
far
also
as
great. And I appreciate y'all putting
events
that
and
on
thank
the
you.
community. Thank you.
I would like to insert some clarity, and I'm not sure you need to hear it, but I want this to be heard on the record that in regards to your concerns about the social media, council has, no, as you well know, council has no control over what.
Oh, 100%.
What or how it gets phrased or put on social media. So, and those kind of, any kind of post relative to anything. whether
No,
it's a-
and
whether
I
it's a
understand that,
event, whether
Mayor.
it's somebody's personal situation, those posts are horrible.
They are,
So-
and I understand, and I 100% agree. However, I just don't think it would have happened had they not. I don't know. Maybe you're right. I mean, they knew that we were the last one that came for the HUD funds, and so I guess that's how it works, and that's great. But we feel like it hurt us a little bit because we couldn't sit still and just say nothing, but we couldn't fight back the way we deserved to fight back. So finally, we just got it taken down.
Good. Well, I
No
understand.
responsibility at all on your part. I'm just saying because of that, I just don't think it would. I don't think that they would have went after East Bell Tap House. I don't think that they would have went
I don't
after.
want to, I don't want to get into a debate of what we
No, I
think
understand.
could
I'm just saying
potentially
because-
happen, But, and I appreciate your feedback. That's good for us to hear, for city manager to hear, for council to hear. So I appreciate your feedback. Council, do you have any other questions?
Thank you guys for believing in us
Thank you.
and trusting us. Thank you.
Get back over to the agenda. Consent agenda. Council, you've had your package. You've been able to review. Always miss one.
Next link.
Next link. Always try to jump to that consent agenda.
That's okay. I'm Jason Arrington. I'm the Director of Fiber Construction with NextLink. NextLink is looking to fiber up the city of Rockdale. I didn't forward a presentation exactly to them, but I was asked to come and explain some of the stuff that you guys can expect to see whenever NextLink comes through. So basically, right now, NextLink is planning to fiber up the city limits. Everything within the city limits, businesses, homes, will provide fiber throughout the town. So what you'll actually see, you'll see a bunch of big rigs that are basically drill rigs that are going to come through, and they will drill, basically bore under the ground, and we'll go and we'll set handholds in between homes and businesses. These will happen out in the right of way. So if you're picturing your own property, think out by the street or out by the sidewalk. We'll put a handhole. It's typically an 11 by 11 handhole. It'll go there. The lid's removable, so we can actually access it, reach down in it, handle what we need to handle, bring fiber off into the houses as you order service. I mean, you're not obligated to order service, but if you want to, those handholds will be placed there so that when you do order service, we can get it to you in a timely manner. Outside of that, if you're outside of the city right of way or the city limits, we do offer wireless options as well. So you're not necessarily being excluded just because you're not inside city limits. We do have various options. We can come out and see what works best for you. That way, everybody can get their gigabit services and beyond. And I wanted to do some Q&A. Anybody has any questions or anything they have? I'm sure there's plenty.
Sure. When do y'all think y'all have it up and running?
It's going to take us about 1.5 years to complete everything. Maybe might extend a little longer than that because there's going to be some different variables we haven't exactly worked through yet. I spoke with Tim on the phone on some of this. We still need to do pre-construction meetings. The city will end up having to locate facilities. I can't outpace the city's ability to locate facilities. So if you guys can only locate so many feet a day or so many thousand feet a week, then I can't outpace that. So we'll stay behind whatever your all's pace is. We'll bring in rigs that accommodate that facility or whatever you guys can facilitate on that, and we'll set our pace from there. If we need to speed up or slow down, we'll be available for those conversations as well.
One of the important things to understand is they are doing directional bore for all their new fiber lines that they're putting in the city. And it does pretty much blanket the city. They've divided the city into grids of about 16 different areas.
That's correct.
And so, you know, they'll come in one area at a time with a permit, and then we'll have to sit down and kind of schedule from a location standpoint to make sure that we do have that capacity. And that is going to be a challenge for us to be able to dedicate the time necessary. Basically, we're going to be locating every single water and sewer line, marking every single water and sewer line in the city throughout the time period that they're here. I would let the public know that there will be issues with that because of the fact that our maps for our water and sewer lines are not 100% accurate. And so there will be issues where we miss things and through their directional boring potentially where they hit an existing water or sewer line that causes a leak and stop the project while those repairs are being made and could disrupt water and sewer service for periods of time during this process. But we'll stay on top of it as we can. I would like to plan a monthly progress meeting with them to kind of map out what's going to happen in the next 30 days. And I'll try to keep council informed as to what areas they're working on as they move forward.
Absolutely. We'll have a construction crew with a supervisor in market at all times that we're doing construction. If we strike a line or anything like that, we do help repair those lines and we assist in any way we can. We'll go from, if we hit your sprinkler system or something like that, we will fix that. So it's not going to be left on you. Just let us know. There'll be signs that are going to go out and basically let you know where we're working. You'll see signs at the end of your streets. You'll see paint start to show up on the grass. This is locating paint, so that basically you can locate the facilities underground. This is for our benefit and your benefit to try not to hit anything that's underground that we can't see. Like as he was saying, that sometimes that's inaccurately marked, or we don't know that something's in an area, so strikes will happen. It's construction, so it can get messy. We'll clean it up, and hopefully we can get everything squared away.
We're also going to stay on them to make sure that as they go through, that they're cleaning up after themselves after each section, so
Absolutely.
we don't have areas left open.
I don't remember this in budget talks. Who incurs the cost for this?
Which cost?
This is
cost to do
this is
this
all in
project.
next. This is all in next link.
They are.
Yes.
Nothing to the city.
The only cost that the city will have, potentially, this is something we're going to sit down and talk with them, is the time necessary to commit to locating all of our lines during that process. I mean, it is time, which time is money.
So does Encore and
Yes, all the other utilities will also.
Encore, Atmos.
Yep.
do they have I know they have a responsibility when you call 811. Do they have a responsibility to do the whole city?
Well, when they call 811, they will section off an area that they're going to do. They'll do the 811 for that area, and all those utilities will have to locate their utilities in that area.
This might help your question here. We are a registered public utility provider in the state of Texas. We operate a lot like those utilities companies. We have the same rights and restrictions that they have. So, yes, when we call in for 811 for them to locate, anybody that has facilities in that area has to come locate their facilities.
And so NextLink is this fiber will belong to NextLink, and you all with the anticipation of selling
That's correct.
Fiber to businesses or to individuals.
Everybody, yes,
everybody.
correct.
Is there a lease payment paid to the city for that, right?
There's actually a franchise fee for being in our utility, being in the right of way that they will pay, just like Atmos pays and
So
any
about
other
the
utility that locates in the.
Are
That
those
is,
paid yearly?
those are paid monthly, yearly.
Depends on the,
Franchise agreement,
yeah, some pay monthly, some pay quarterly, some pay annually.
and it's regulated through the state
Is that a one-time payment or is that an ongoing payment while the services are in place?
forever.
Okay.
It's an annual payment.
It's not a franchise agreement per se. So we can provide you with our SPCOA number that allows us to operate as a utility provider. So these fees are set by the PUC that we pay.
Yes.
So
It's set by this, it is set by, the rates are set by the state, Public Utility Commission.
Yeah.
The terms in the agreement are typically, how they're paid, the frequency, if they're paid monthly or annually, but we're regulated in that respect by the state.
There's no obligation to use NextLink in the city limits or anything like that.
Obligation as in to buy our
But you're
service?
the sole
No.
supplier.
No, you don't have to buy the
A
service.
citizen can use any provider they so choose.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. Anybody else that's there. I think there's some copper and stuff that's already in town, and if that's what you
And
want to use.
there's
go for it.
wireless options.
Yeah, there's wireless options as well. And if we're already on NextLink wireless options and you're within the city limits, we'll probably be coming to you to convert you to fiber.
And what is your expected frequency of meeting with and following up and updating Tim as the city manager in regards to your project and your project scope and your creep and your growth and?
Well, your right-of-way inspector should be in touch with our guys every day. as we're in the field. They ought to know, there'll be a pre-construction meeting. They ought to know which street we're working on each day, where we intend to get to and finish, if we actually got to that point and finished, or if we're gonna pick up at that point the next day. Because we'll also have to submit, any traffic control that may be required. So if we're crossing an interstate, if we're crossing an intersection or something like that, we'll have to have some traffic control put in place as
And you're
well.
responsible for planning that traffic control?
We are.
Okay. And yeah, that was one of my questions.
And it also, all is permitted, they'll have to apply for permits
Yes,
for all
we submit our applications over to Tim, and he'll provide us with
And
approval.
your budget is structured where you get, and no disrespect in this question, but I have to ask, your budget is structured so when you get to the point, you think you have the budget structured to get accomplished everything you want to get accomplished, you don't want to get halfway through this project and say, oh, we're out of money, and now we're out of luck, and see you later, City of Rockdale.
Right, it's structured in a way that we can finish the entire city, so that shouldn't be a problem.
You could or you will?
Both, could and will.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've got the money up front already there to go and spend and do the project. Now it's just a matter of executing.
Do y'all wait till all 16 grids are done before you start selling subscriptions, or y'all
No,
kind of do it?
we'll
as
sell them
goes?
as we go. So we design it in a way that we go from our cabinet location, which basically distributes everything out to the internet, and we'll go rolling over, we'll just right out from that cabinet and just keep on going.
And what is your estimated start date?
Well, we were waiting on permits. We don't have permits yet, and this
One
was
would
part.
actually come tonight, and we're gonna publicize this as well, and make this presentation before we actually issue the first permit. So they wanna get started as soon as possible.
And will your crews be staying here in motel rooms in Rockdale?
That part I do not know. I don't know whether they're particularly going to stay. It's going to be based on rates. Some will stay here, some may stay nearby. Don't know.
It'd be
And,
my preference that they stayed here.
well, I can understand it.
And I say that very sincerely.
Yep.
Mayor, would it be useful if the ISD was able to provide some type of mapping of where our students live? Because we see about students having need at home to be able to access the internet.
I think it would be very useful, honestly, if it was possible to work out some kind of negotiation. I know we're not negotiating right now, and I'm not proposing that. I would love to see every student in Rockdale have access to high-speed internet.
Yeah,
I think it's
definitely
just
something we can talk
imperative
about.
to their learning.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I mean, everything that's in the city limits is already going to be built out. So if there's some folks that are outside the city limits, which there always are.
I would love to
We can talk about that.
enter into some discussion with myself, you, Tim, and whoever else wants to join regarding that, because I think that's a very valuable discussion.
Okay.
When new subdivisions are going in, I think it's important that they include that type of infrastructure.
Yeah, I think you have one in the north side of town that we're already working with the developer in.
And then there's another one that we're talking about tonight.
That's
so-
right. That's right.
Council, any other questions? Tim?
I have a question. I'm a bit curious. What would be a reason why someone would be encouraged to go with Nextlink versus AT&T or something they already have?
Is there fiber already here? I think it's all coax now.
I'm talking about internet, just in general.
Fiber's faster.
Because of the
It's-
speed?
It's speed and reliability. You get different things. If your coax is hanging on lines and things like that, you have any issues with, say somebody runs into a pole, so you have a power outage, et cetera, poles have to be changed out, they get old. We're putting it all underground so we don't have some of those issues.
What about your pricing? How does that compare to just typical, for example, AT&T internet?
It's competitive against those folks as well. There was a sales brochure, I think, that was put out in one of your all's newsletters, and if that did not go out, or you didn't get a chance to see that, there will be flyers that will be mailed to everybody as well that's within that area. So you'll have an option to be able to see that stuff, and just don't throw it away. That way you actually see it. I know some of that junk mail comes in, we toss it without reading it. But there will be a flyer coming in soon to tell the rates and such, and they'll have the phone number on there for you to be able to sign up.
Thank you.
Citizens won't see anything in their yard except for the
Handhole.
handle cover.
That's right. 11 by 11 handhole.
Cement sticks up above the ground just a little bit.
It shouldn't. We're going to try to
Flush.
we try to flush them because we don't, I'm like you, I don't want one in my yard that I can't ride my mower over.
So every yard will have one, or they have the service or not,
They'll
only
be-
if they have service?
And no, if they don't, even if they don't, it'll be in between the houses, so the handhole can service two houses.
Okay.
How does how does fiber get from the house?
I'm sorry?
At that point, how does fiber get to the house?
They take it and they take a spade basically, and you pull the ground apart and you bury the fiber about 12 inches deep.
So that would be the installer to the
That's
house.
right, that's right.
If somebody signed up.
That's right.
Interesting.
Put it under my floor mat.
I was joking. Any other questions, council?
I don't do that. I run from my neighbor's house.
There you go.
Any other information for us, sir?
Not at the moment. Anybody, you guys have any questions? Anybody out here? As long as my neighborhood is first, I'd be happy.
Thank you for answering our questions. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for also enjoying our humor.
I appreciate it. I look forward to coming back and meeting with everybody. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, council, I tried to jump to this early. Item 6 on the agenda. You've all had time to review your consent agenda. Are there any questions or comment regarding that? Being none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Just have a real quick, I know that Lynn's brilliant mind sometimes wondered, but I see that he was both present and absent at the last meeting.
Ah,
I
And
was
so,
physically here, mentally absent.
there you go.
so,
Correct.
make it that correction, please. Thank you. Was that anything else? So now I'll entertain a motion to approve the corrected consent agenda in regards to Councilmember Perry's presence or absence at the previous meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 7 on the agenda, ordinances. 7A, consider taking any action, necessary action on the second reading of an ordinance amending the parking on unimproved surfaces. Ben?
Mayor, council, pleasure. Nothing has changed since you've last seen this. We're still proposing the same to essentially grandfather the existing, not allow that to expand. And then all new subdivisions that would come in would not be allowed to park on grass because that date would have passed already and their number would have been 0.
And for my clarification, the moratorium that we voted on to put in effect last meeting, that is still in effect for the entirety of a year, correct?
If that motion's made again tonight, that would be the case.
Okay.
There's something that stuck out in there. I wasn't at the last meeting. Apologize, guys. Looking in here, so we cannot tow a car that's in violation, correct? 'Cause I know that was a big sticking point in the last one, so that's been taken out, correct?
We have taken out that portion of that, so there would no longer be towing.
Okay.
Yeah, these 4 things.
Yeah, that's fine.
And has the survey been done to establish where we are? Are you waiting for this to pass and then you'll do that survey?
So we did the preliminary one. If you do the moratorium, essentially that would cause us to wait to do that inventory because on the date it passes, the day we'll start doing that inventory. So you set that number. And,
The day of its effective. In other words, if there's a moratorium, then at the end of the moratorium, that's when we would establish a new census of vehicles in violation.
If I understand, why do we need a moratorium at this point if we're saying if you're already doing this, then you can continue to do it, but you can't, nobody new can do it?
That's a fair question.
Is there a reason to have a moratorium at that point?
staff does not believe there should be one.
So it's a recommendation of staff not to attach a moratorium to this?
Right, that we would move forward with this, so that way we can start inventory, and we've already discussed with Tim, we have a plan of action of how we'll do that analysis, so it will be fair for everyone. There'll be multiple inspections done, so if you add within that time frame, that will allow, you'll have your set number of whatever that highest is, as long as it's not a junk vehicle. It has to be running operable vehicle that will count towards that total, and then that will be, from there, it will be a staff review.
And this new writing of this, just for my clarification, and I think I heard it, but I want to be sure I heard it correctly. The grandfather clause, so to speak, will be in force, and those who are currently have the right to park where they're parking will still continue to have that right as long as they live at that residence and no new habitants move into that residence. If someone new were to move into that residence, that grandfather clause is lost. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay, can you correct me, please?
Basically, if a property has 3 cars parked in the grass that are not junk vehicles, that are just parked in violation of this ordinance, if those 3 vehicles are parked there, if somebody buys the house, and the person that sells the house moves those, or takes those vehicles with them, and the new owner brings in 3 vehicles, they would be able to have those 3 vehicles parked in the grass. If they brought in 2, and they only had 2 vehicles for, is it 6 months?
That's right.
If they only had 2 vehicles for 6 months, and then their legal nonconformance would be reduced to 2. But if they brought in 4, then they would be in violation. So the number of vehicles of the new owner, the change in ownership doesn't cause them to lose their legal nonconformance.
I like this ordinance, but enforcement's going to be.
Oh, that's look,
Well, it is going to be challenging. I think it is doable. I really do, and it's going to improve.
we ought to give a spreadsheet.
So,
I have a question with the removing the authority of the city to tow vehicles that are in violation. Then, if that's the case, then what's the resolution?
there is a fine for, it would go to court, and they would be assessed a fine. And then, so.
But they can still park out on the road. As long
Yeah,
as
so they could move their, if we send them a notice of violation, they could move their vehicle into the street.
This is really only going for
And if it becomes a problem, I will tell you this also, there are some areas where parking in the street will present a challenge. And if a large number of people move their vehicles into the street, then we'll have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely, we will.
Well, you look at like Murray Street, that's a very high-volume street, and it's a bottleneck sometimes with people parking out there. So it depends on how many people are going on the road.
Yep.
Council, any other questions or comments regarding this?
I like the ordinance. I don't know that it cleans anything up. I agree it keeps it from getting any worse. I don't see how it cleans anything up. But we can see what this does for a while and readdress it if we don't see some improvement somehow, some way.
And your recommendation is to Pass the ordinance as written, is that correct?
This is from our constituents and meeting with the attorney. This is the cleanest ordinance that we could prepare to accommodate the ask of the community.
Okay, council?
That's the last reading of it, then we do it tonight, it goes in
Yes,
effect.
this is the final reading, this is the second reading.
Everybody's moving cars in their driveway right now.
Yeah, I'm sure they are listening.
Council, any other questions or comments for Ben regarding item A? Y'all are hard to keep on track tonight.
Make a motion.
I agree, I'm so.
I'm gonna make a motion that we take the recommendation of the planning commission and approve the second reading.
Thank you, sir. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor to take the recommendation of the planning and zoning committee and approve the ordinance as written. Any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item 7B, consider take any necessary action on the second reading of an ordinance amending the open and outdoor storage regulations. Back on the docket, Ben.
So this ordinance was brought to the attention of the planning commission about a year ago, and we finally had the chance to address it. We have businesses that operate where they sell outdoor merchandise, and currently our ordinance doesn't allow for that. And so what we want to do is clean it up so that way we would acknowledge that use, allow it, and then put parameters on items that wouldn't fit as outside merchandise. So we've done that, and we also provide the option to people, if you wanted to sell something that wouldn't be defined as allowed, you can apply for a temporary permit where you would have a week to sell those items. And then, of course, schools and nonprofits are exempt from paying those permit fees. Other businesses would have to pay that permit fee, which I believe is at $100 currently.
If I understood correctly, they still have to come get a permit, there's just no fee associated with it.
Correct.
Okay.
We would acknowledge it so that way we know that it's a school function or a nonprofit function, and they just would not pay that fee.
And for the other permits, it's $100 per permit.
And this is the same ordinance that was presented for first reading last. There was no changes.
That, one thing I didn't see when I reviewed this, so help me out if you will. Can someone come and say, I want a permit for every weekend for a month? Is that one $100 permit, or they have to get a permit every other weekend, or every weekend?
So we have that stipulated in the section. It's under, on item number 1 under subsection D. We say that you can only hold 8 temporary outdoor sales each calendar year. It starts on January 1st, and then each permit shall be issued for no more than 7 consecutive days.
Because what I don't want to happen is I don't want us to be overburdening our small businesses.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I'd be $400.
Right.
And so currently, out of the 52 weeks of the year, you can do 8. Is how we have it written. We can expand that. We can keep it as is, or we can shorten it if you'd like.
Good with it. Council, any
So we
questions?
leave it and address it if it happens.
Entertain, questions or comments? Entertain a motion.
Move that we approve line item 7B as read.
A motion on the floor, is there a second?
I'll second that.
A motion and a second on the floor, is there any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item 7C, consider taking any necessary action on the second reading of an ordinance amending the noise ordinance.
So there were some changes since you've last seen this. The police department has conducted their analysis and recommended the following changes. So if I've done in red line, and if you have that attachment in your packet, if you'll follow along with me, we've had to define a few terms so that way we set what our criteria is. The first one is we define what daytime means, and then we define what nighttime means. And then if you move towards the back of the ordinance, there will be a small red line. Essentially what we've done is instead of breaking it out by zoning classifications and allowing different decibel ranges, we've just set the clause that you can't make any more noise that exceeds 85 decibels during the daytime or 70 at the nighttime. And that's just a blanket wide for the city. We've kept in the exemptions for events in the central area / downtown district or the fair, which will be highlighted in yellow so that way you can see that we still accommodated those.
And there are other exemptions, like for football games and.
Yeah.
Right.
There are a number of different ones.
I read through this, and I can't remember if I read it, so please help me out with this, Ben. Number one, I didn't see anything about the training of our police officers regarding this. And number two, I don't recall reading anything of the standard calibration period for the noise dosimeters that they'll be using to take these measurements with. Did I miss that?
We have that in the definition of what we'll use to measure
I understand
that
you have the
sound.
definition of the devices that will be used, but I didn't see a time frame where those devices are required to be calibrated every month, every time before use. I don't know. It's just like other industrial hygiene devices. They're required to be calibrated to ensure that the measurement you're getting is an accurate measurement. It's just like they calibrate their radar units, calibrated against a known defined measurement. Is that in this ordinance?
It is not, but typically that's handled on a policy perspective, such as the police training side of it, that they would have a standard operating procedure of how they would handle this ordinance, how they'll calibrate those machines, and then which officers will get the training to use those machines and how they'll use them. It's typically done in an SOP.
And also, it is in regard to if it is enforced and used, if it's not, there will be issues when it goes to court. So we'll want to make sure that we confer with the prosecutor to make sure that everything is handled and maintained properly.
Captain Goodrich, you feel comfortable y'all can write a policy to address that? Okay.
So if I could bring this to a real practical level from people that I hear from, can this or does this in any way address our people who live in neighborhoods where at all times of the night we have people with very loud cars, motorcycles, that going down your street and, I don't know where or if this would even be loud enough, but it's, obviously going to be something temporary. Is there anything in this that can help those neighbors who are saying to me, could you?
That's what this is part of what this is intended to address, but part of the challenge of that would be having the police actually witness and measure it when it's not a static noise source. If it's a loud car going down the street or something like that, but if it's somebody in their backyard that's, working on something and they're constantly revving, then, and the neighbor calls to complain, the police come over and measure it, then they would be able to make contact in that way. I suppose if it was something that happened on a regular basis, then they could potentially sit and wait for it to happen, but it would be a little bit more
Or you
challenging.
get that phone out and video them like I did.
Esme, I don't know if you've heard, because these are people in.
Yeah, it happens a lot on Belton and Rice, and I've called the chief several times about it, and they usually go out there and check it out and see if they can actively catch somebody revving up their vehicle. I didn't get any feedback from chief to see if he actually ticketed somebody or if he was able to actively catch somebody revving up their vehicle or the muffler or whatever it is on those vehicles. But usually it's the same kids or people that do it all the time, so I would assume if you call the chief or call the police, they'd go out there and try to listen for it, I guess. Is that what you're recommending, Tim?
Yes.
I don't think it doesn't address that, but I don't think they have a way to address it in a noise ordinance. It's gonna be exhibition acceleration and stuff like that, so we're gonna be able to get those loud vehicles.
I would like to invite everybody to come stay at my house for one night. And when those diesels are going into that low gear, it'll shake the whole house.
I can fix that problem for you.
Well, you knew that when you knew Bear Stars.
Any other questions or comments regarding item 7C? Being none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we,
Second reading.
second reading of the noise ordinance as presented.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 8, resolutions. Item 8A, consider taking any action on a resolution adopting a covered applications policy in conformance with Texas Government Code, Chapter 620 regulations regarding the prohibition of the use of TikTok government-owned electronic devices. This is pretty simple and straightforward, right, Tim?
Yes, the legislature passed some regulations and said that we have to comply. City attorney prepared a resolution that allows for that. We have had discussions with Univista that will help accommodate enforcement of this. So, just basically prohibits the use of TikTok or some other affiliate on city-owned electronic devices, computers, tablets, phones. So.
Council, any questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Is this a one-time it has to come to us? Does that have to come
I
back?
believe it's one time.
Yes, it's not annual or anything.
So if you approve this tonight, it will be enforced.
It's a resolution.
I make a motion we adopt the prohibition of use of TikTok on all government electronic devices.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 8B, consider taking any necessary action on a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign a contract with TxDOT for the temporary closure of state highways for the Rockdale Community Christmas event and parade. Tim?
Yeah, so on December 9th, the Chamber is hosting their annual Christmas event and parade downtown, and are proposing to close some streets in regard to that. The parade route will go from Wilcox down to Green Street, and that closing is from 6 to 7 p.m., and then the Main Street on the west side of Wolf Park, from basically from the alley to the railroad tracks are going to be closed, and then Milam on the south side of Wolf Park. And Lucida is here to address the council in this request. Normally, the police chief has the authority to close streets, but since we're talking about TxDOT roads, they require a resolution from council authorizing the closure of those streets.
Council, any questions?
I got a couple questions. So I know where it's running from, that people have been asking me questions in our store about closing. Are we going to set up like in the past on Mill Street and then come down, turn on Wilcox here?
Yes, and then down the highway, and then we're suggesting that everyone turn onto Green Street up East Bell to get back to Fair Park.
In your packet, there's a map of the actual route of the parade, and there's some other closures as well, but this was only This only addresses the closure of the state highway.
Is it Christmas tree lighting tomorrow night or is it on Saturday?
Tomorrow night.
Christmas
night.
tree lighting
Tomorrow
is
night, so
tomorrow
that's another
night.
discrepancy. Okay.
This is Saturday,
December
9th.
7th.
Got it.
And if I may, I've never spoken at a city council meeting before, but I have some handouts with an updated layout and a timeline of the events for the evening, if you guys are interested.
Sure.
And there's enough for both of you, too. Essentially, we want to have a really big, fun community event with a petting zoo, a human snow globe. There are multiple organizations who have come together to provide free kids games, free food, free drinks for anybody in the community to come, regardless of socioeconomic status. So, all we need is your help to approve this, so we can shut down Texdot Road for a couple hours.
I have a question. Yeah, during my 12 years as fire chief here, I was always given a map of the parade and a required signature of the fire chief, the police chief, the city manager, was to approve that map and to approve that route. Is that still the process?
That's a great question. I submitted that to Ben a couple months ago, and I was unfamiliar with that being the
That's
process.
still the
I'm happy
process?
to
Because I think the
provide
last
it.
couple of parades, that has not gone to the fire department, and that really frustrates me, because we are setting them up for failure.
will make
I
sure
want
that
this to
happens,
happen.
Mayor. I was not aware that the fire department was late.
I just want it to be known that I want this to happen.
Okay.
Because they're the ones out there managing the traffic, risking their lives, dealing with frustrated people on a dark night, which I support this parade by all means in this event, but I want our emergency responders to be protected properly.
Where do they reroute the traffic through?
They stop it, and they reroute them down,
Bell?
not Bell,
Elton?
Alzer,
Oh, Bowser?
to Murray,
Okay.
all the way down to Rice,
Okay.
and back out on 79. Big trucks, we just have to hold on the street.
Truck's probably the hardest one, so.
Or vehicles coming in this way, they route up. Street runs in front of the city yard, so. Who will be responsible for ensuring that map gets sent to our emergency responder departments?
I will send it to him tomorrow.
Okay.
And the chamber had submitted it to us. I think that went to the police chief, but I never sent it to the
Okay.
fire department. But I will get that sent over tomorrow.
Is the police department able to provide any kind of presence along these alternative routes? Because those are neighborhoods where people walk and whatnot, and that's a lot of traffic to be coming down a residential street.
My experience from past managing these parades and traffic control, no, because they're tied up doing other functions and helping at the big, busy intersections, because right, wrong, or indifferent, a lot of these drivers get really frustrated, and there are issues that occur there that require PD to be with the fire department to protect their personal safety.
I just know, again, being, I see cars then, because they're frustrated, if they go these other ways.
You're correct.
Down these streets, there are 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, well beyond 25 miles an hour.
Right. That is a valid concern. I think, Tim, could you talk with Chief Metters, see if there's any,
What we can do.
see what we could do with that? Because that is a valid concern for our residents in those neighborhoods. Yeah? Yeah, maybe we could work with Mile MSO to support some of that as well.
And
DPS.
we're putting in here the closure from 6 to 7. The parade actually starts at 6, and it is not expected to last an hour necessarily. But
What about the downtown part? What's the
the
timing
downtown
on that?
part that's actually from 4 to 6, 4 to 10.
Yeah, so I think we're asking for it to be closed from 3 to 10.
3 to 10, because they'll have an
starts at
hour
4.
for setup. The festival, I think, lasts from 4 to 9.
Yes.
It gives them an hour for setup, an hour for cleanup. And that's just the 2 roads by Wolf, that's just the road by Wolf Park.
Any other comments or questions? Entertain a motion to approve this or not approve this resolution? Hope we approve it.
I have one more question.
Sure.
It's a little separate because sometimes I have different priorities. I love Christmas and I love all this, and thank you for putting this on and spearheading it. I did have some questions just to clarify. I know last year whenever we did it, we wanted to make sure that we were able to have activities and food and snacks for all demographics, like you were saying. So can you just clarify for me, like, what would we have for citizens that would be free, essentially, like for the kiddos?
Yeah, so we have free kids games, we have axe throwing, ring toss, letters to Santa, not
Right, of
actual
course,
axes,
right.
letters to Santa and coloring stations. We're going to have, the depot is hosting a story time in the caboose and a Santa meet and greet option where Walmart has graciously donated gift bags for everybody who participates in that. The city has, I believe, made arrangements to give away a small gift to anybody who is interested of some sort of ornament. We are doing free s'mores.
Okay.
Moon Brew is giving away free hot apple cider, and Run Florist Run is giving away free popcorn. We also have that human snow globe that is somewhere on your maps. That will be a free service as well. Anybody who wants to participate and take a picture, have a nice photo op with their family, can get that free of charge.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
Doing the
Okay.
library.
Oh, yeah, and the petting zoo and the living nativity,
Okay.
sorry.
Awesome, thank you. Council will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we Authorize the city manager to sign the contract with TxDOT for the temporary closure of state highways, for Rockdale Community Christmas event and parade.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 9, action items. Item 9A, consider and take any necessary action on tree replacement variance requests for the new Dollar Tree on West US Highway 79 or West Cameron Avenue. Ben?
So this is a variance request for landscaping. And so essentially our ordinance calls in two different spots to do different landscaping requirements. The first is going to be the normal that you see when someone puts in a new business on typically a vacant lot. They're required to landscape a certain percentage of that. We recently adopted maybe last year to reduce that limit just a little bit because we realized that we're requiring too much landscaping. However, there's another section, and this is the section they're going to ask a variance from. In platting, you're supposed to identify how many trees you have on your lot, which you'll see in your packet that Triad Surveying performed a tree survey. And you can see how many trees that they have, which it's a lot. And what we'll typically do from that survey is identify what are trash trees, essentially non-native trees we won't require them to replace. However, in this one, every single tree on this lot is not a trash tree. It's either oak or cedar, if I'm remembering correctly. And so they are required to replace that on a 2-to-1 ratio without a variance. And so they've come in with a variance request because they've met our other end of our landscaping requirements. They've actually exceeded that requirement by a couple of trees and bushes. And so they're asking to not over-landscape their lot and to have a variance on that landscaping as they've already exceeded our other requirement on landscaping.
So, I don't know if is this on the screen or capable of being on the screen?
The whole 14.9 acres.
No.
And that's the whole 14.9.
That's the whole 14.9?
If I may, that is 0.9 acres, 0.924. That is only the piece of property we bought from the larger 15-acre lot. And the requirement then explained to me is part of the planning process. We were supposed to be planning within that larger subdivision when we bought the land in January. The prior owner got behind on their process, so a couple months, 3 months later, with agreement with the city, we initiated planting our less than 1 acre by itself. So we did pay for a tree survey for the 15 acres, and that data is available. But we did, and through the city planning council, we got the plat approved and recorded in June. But in arrears, from a planning standpoint, we didn't replace the number of inches that says that we were supposed to replace. Now, if we wait a couple years, we have a sprinkler system and the shrubs, they're going to grow, but we thought that this was nice landscaping, and hopefully you'll see, there were 22 cars at Dollar Tree before I came in here. I was very glad to see that. So hopefully it's doing well to see. But the landscaping as is, we're just requesting a variance to the prior planting requirement of more inches of trees, if that makes sense.
Can you see the property line on? I can see it on. I think this is
In your packet,
right,
Councilman, there's in the tree survey that follows this particular plat. It shows where the Dollar Tree property actually is.
but behind the building. Is this their property right here?
Their property.
That rectangle is the Dollar Tree property. The
So-
driveway is on the upper left-hand corner.
Is your truck parking or whatever this is right here is all the way at the back of your property?
The back is just some retention.
This
for
that's the
water
back of your
to-
property right here.
Yes.
It is, and it's where water can percolate and get around into some.
Yes, they're a very small lot out of what was supposed to be a larger development.
I see, am I counting right, that proposed change is 13 trees in total on that? Is that correct?
Correct.
And what was the original number of trees?
27 12-inch or larger trees. It was a forest.
Well, I think you'd be covered up by trees.
Yeah, I had 28, either 28 or 27 that they had that were supposed to be replaced, which that count goes towards. They're still short, obviously. And so,
You said half, 50% replacement.
right. And so by the calculation, if you took what their caliper was that they took out, they owe you 168 inches.
Do you have a recommendation on this, Ben?
Staff recommends to approve that variance request since that is unique to the property of how forested it was. They've already added more landscaping than we would typically require if they did not have to have replacement trees.
And I do have to give you kudos on the sign you put up. That sign looks good, like that pedestal sign. Council, any other questions? Comments? Concerns? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation by planning and zoning for the variance request as presented.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 9B, consider taking this action on a variance request submitted on behalf of Joe Cortez Sr. for the property located at 633 West Cameron for the side setback requirement. Tim, or Ben, sorry.
That's okay. So we are moving ahead on Mr. Cortez to prepare his property for the potential of a new home. We're in the works of potentially doing something else to help him. But in case that does not happen, we're going to prepare this lot as is. So you'll see a zone change come in next meeting. What this variance request is doing is you'll see on the second page the site plan that the builder that's already been awarded the bid has prepared. There's only been one variance request that's needed. It's actually on the east side of that lot. You'll see on that side setback, they're proposing a 6-foot side setback. Typically, we require 9, so they're coming in with a 3-foot variance request.
The front setback from West Cameron, is that a variance, that 20 foot?
So they're
I thought it was
actually
25 foot minimum.
we require 25-foot front setback. They're actually doing 50, and the reason that they're actually going to do 50 is there's noise mitigation
Oh, I see the
requirements
50 now, okay.
from the state, and so it has to be 50 foot away. So that's why it's sitting this way on the lot. We actually thought there was going to be more variance requests in this, so this was actually positive news that it was only one setback.
What is the current building setback off of Cameron?
25.
I mean, not the current regulation, the building actually says
What's his
25?
building?
Oh, the current building,
Like 15 feet?
yeah,
12 feet?
10, 12 foot. It's yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That building predates zoning code, I'm sure.
What's your recommendation, Ben?
Our recommendation is to approve that, so that way Mr. Cortez can get a new home.
I've got one question. First, I'm so happy he got approved, and this is a great program. It's gonna look great. I'm so happy for him and his family. Just curious, because I'm glad this came up, because I kept thinking, how they're gonna build a house right back up here at the front, because it is a long, narrow, all those lots are. Do they have plans? Is that just gonna be one big old grass front yard? Is that what they're gonna do, or is that part of that program? How does that work? Did they sod it? Who sods it? Do we know?
The program sods to a certain point. I can't remember if it's 20 foot of sod. I'd have to ask for verification, so it won't all be resodded. And then there's no warranty on that. So when they get that grass put in, they'll essentially call Mr. Cortez and allow existing drive and adding a sidewalk to the front door. So it's going to be mostly grass.
Good. Tim, is it still set for January demo? Is that what I heard in the past? Okay.
Yes.
Does this plat through this grant assistance program, and I say this very genuine, because we just passed this new parking ordinance, is it in compliance with the parking surfaces and the new parking ordinance since he's gonna have a new home?
Yes, this will be with the drive that's already there and what they'll put in. He should be able to meet those requirements.
Okay. Council, any other questions? Comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we take the recommendation from staff for the variance request for the side setback.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 9C, consider taking any necessary action on final plat submitted by Mike Richards for the property known as 1013 West Cameron Avenue, Rockdale, Milam County, Texas, into Lot 1. Ben?
So this is the final plat for the potential auto zone that's coming into the city limits. So they have worked with our engineers. They have gotten everything approved, including their drainage. And so now they're coming before you with the final plat. If you'll remember on the preliminary plat, they had a sign variance on there. The only comment that staff has is we'll like that removed off the plat and have it as a separate item. So that way it does not hold up this plat in any way. So taking that variance request off this plat meets all city standards, should be approved.
And
Is this the one?
Go ahead.
Is this the one that needed some signature block changes on it, or was that the next one?
The next one.
Is this also the one that they talked about the advertising, the big advertising?
Yes.
Is anybody here from tonight? I'm sure y'all, y'all done this. They won't sell that back to you or anything like that? They're pretty hard at those about it. I'm sure y'all already ran that trap. I was just kind of curious. Like a 20-year one you said or something like that?
It is a forever lease.
Wow.
There's no expiration date.
Yes, I'm sure y'all don't want that out front.
No, AutoZone would love to take that.
Yeah. I'm sure you ran it, so.
Well, how are you gonna manage that? Just accept it and go with it and work around it?
Pretty much. Yeah, I think AutoZone would really like to have their own, they'd really like to have their own monument sign, pylon sign.
Maybe if it comes for rent, you could lease it. I think I actually have a billboard on that sign. So.
You got a number.
I do have a billboard on that sign.
That's the next time.
Approval of this plat, if it is approved, it still would be contingent upon the next item, which is the variance.
Okay, any further discussion on item 9D?
9C.
9C, sorry about that. 1013 West Cameron. We have two 1013 West Cameron. 9C, any other discussion, comments, questions?
I make a motion that we accept staff recommendation for the approval of the final plat, subject to removing the sign variance request from the plat.
I did have a question, Ben. Should that motion include the change that you referenced needs to be done?
Yes. Yeah, so that way that how we motioned it is perfect. Because
okay, so
what
it's-
that would
okay.
do is the plat's essentially approved now, and we've now separated the variance, so that variance will not hold up that plat.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? I have a motion, and did you get who seconded it? I think it was Councilman Walker. Have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, the motion passes. All right, 9D, consider take any necessary action on variance request submitted by Michael Richards, property located at 1013 West Cameron Avenue to allow for additional detached sign.
So this is essentially what you just removed from the plat. As you've heard, they have a billboard that they do not own, and they would have to lease it if they were to put their advertisement on it. And currently by code, you're only allowed to have one detached sign. And so what they want to do is ask you for a variance to allow for that additional detached sign, so that way they can advertise just as everybody else along Cameron advertises. When you approve variance requests, there's supposed to be certain criteria that's met. They meet the criteria that this is a special condition to the property, that there is a forever lease of a billboard on that. And so by state definition, they have criteria for the variance.
Would this be a pedestal type sign like Dollar Tree put up, or is it a
It's a 30-footer.
30-foot
It's a
elevation?
pole sign.
Yes, this is a freestanding pole sign that's proposed. And so we've reached out to them, potential to do that sign that Dollar Tree did, and they would like to have a freestanding pole sign since that's what everybody else along Cameron has.
So I have a concern, and I'll discuss my concern in the form of a question. If this is approved, does the city potentially hold any liability with that sign blocking this other sign that has a long-standing lease on that property?
So where that sign would be proposed to be put at would not be blocking that billboard, if I'm understood. We would have to see what that permit application is, because they have not submitted a permit application for what that sign's gonna look like or the location of it. But where they reference it on the plat, it would not block the billboard.
So I heard two different answers. One, my interpretation is that you weren't sure, and second part of your answer said where they proposed it on the plat, that it wouldn't. So now I'm confused.
Let me clarify my answer then. On the plat where they're saying it's gonna be, which is not a finalized document, it will not block that billboard. What they'll do after that is submit a permit application where they'll tell you exactly where that sign's gonna go, what those setbacks are. Because on plat, if you look at the plat, there is a easement of where the sign will go. And so by that easement, it will not block the billboard.
My concern is,
Authority to tell, say, no, you can't put it here, you have to move it back 10 feet, or based on that concern.
so my concern is if that's not already on the plat, and we are being asked to approve this variance for the plat, if we approve it as is tonight, that sign could potentially be put anywhere.
So we've separated it from the plat. Since we didn't want it to hold up the plat. And so this variance, you can approve to certain building setbacks if you wanted to. They're required to meet a 5-foot setback currently when you do a freestanding pole sign.
And you can pass the variance with conditions as well. So if you want to make the variance approval conditional that the sign that they install does not block the sign if that's part of your motion, then that would.
So, I'm gonna chime in. I understand that they want a pedestal sign, they want a pole sign, and I understand that everybody has a pole sign, but just because everybody's done it for the last 100 years doesn't mean that we continue to put the same thing in place. My preference is, I think the monument sign that's out in front of Dollar Tree is much more attractive, much more modern, and personally, I think that's what the city ought to adopt. And if you want a pole sign, you're asking for a variance to put a pole sign. If that's not the standard, that's the variance. That's my 2 cents.
Also add to that could be a condition of the variance as well, that you could make a motion to adopt the variance for this sign conditional that they install a monument sign instead of a pole sign.
I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Perry's comment.
I agree as well.
I'll make a motion that says that.
I agree as well.
Go ahead.
So let me ask another question. So the variance is to have, if there is a monument sign, do they even need a variance?
Yes, because it's
still
detached
two
from the
signs?
building.
Okay.
They're asking for a variance for a detached sign. So they can currently do attached to the building. They don't need variances for that. But if they want to advertise, the billboard's acting as they're detached currently, because it's on their property.
I make a motion that we approve the sign variance with the understanding that it would be a pedestal mounted sign, not a a monumental sign and not a pole sign.
I second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes.
Welcome, Rockdale. Thank you. Get those trees planted. He'll tell you how to do them.
Item 9E, consider taking any necessary action on final plat submitted by Brian Borrow for the property known as 310 Calhoun Street, Rockdale, Milam County, Texas, into Lot 1. That's the church, correct?
Yes, this is the church. It's coming in just for a final plat because there's no utility extensions required, but it's never been platted. So one of the notes that you'll see on there, they've referenced it as Lot 1A. And in plating world, if you put a numerical and alphabetical, that means it's been platted before. If it's only numerical, that means it's its first plat. And so we've asked them just to drop the A, call it Lot 1. And then they've added a note, which is Note 2, which is inaccurate, so we've asked them to remove that. And then essentially they just have some signature block issues. So we've asked them to remove the planning and zoning manager signature block and remove the county judge and commissioner, as this is within the city limits and they do not have to approve this plat. And then we've asked to add signature block for the mayor, so that way we can sign and get this plat filed.
Okay, council, any questions for Ben? Ben, what's your recommendation?
Approval subject to those conditions.
Okay. No questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt this as read and with the conditions that set forth by Ben.
A motion on the floor, is there a second? Second. A motion and a second on the floor, is there any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Action item 9F, consider and take any necessary action on a variance request submitted by Randy Thompson for property located at 302 West Bell regarding building setbacks. Ben?
So this was a plat that the planning commission saw at their last meeting and they approved the plat, but it's the council's discretion to approve the variances. So what you have before you is the variances on this plat. You'll see on page 2 that I've redlined what's been needed to be done. You can also read the memo and I'll read it off because there is a lot of variances and there's a lot of changes that need to be made. So essentially what Triad did was they used the building setback lines for a actual home structure, but we have different setbacks for accessory structures. And so what I've told them that they need to do, if you approve, is variance 2 that's listed on the plat is not needed because it meets a 5-foot setback. They would need to amend the variance 3 to 1.87 feet since accessory structures are only required to meet a 5-foot setback. Same thing with variance 4, but instead to 1.97 feet. Remove variance 5 and then remove variance 6 since that's just reference to concrete and concrete has a 1-foot side setback. So there's not as many variances as it looks like currently. They just need to remove a lot. Really, you only have 2 variances for you. One for a 1.87 foot setback and one for a 1.97 foot setback. And I'll add some background to this plat. The owner wanted to pull building permits, and by code, you have to have a platted piece of property. And so he's coming in with a combination to meet city standards. And again, I referenced when you approve variances, there's supposed to be a set of criteria set by state to approve those variances. The one that he would meet, for the reason why staff is recommending approval, is if you do not approve this variance, he would lose more than 25% of his land to those building setbacks, which you can see in the dashed line on the plat. It's a very small building setback currently.
This is a very odd-shaped piece of property. Do you know, was he looking at doing an addition to the built house?
He wanted to pull a permit for his accessory structure, the 1-story metal building in the middle of Lot 2 is what I believe. And so speaking on the phone, I discussed that we have to move forward with the plat before permits can be issued. And so we worked together. He essentially came in to only combine 2 of the lots. It didn't meet city standards, so we met, and I told him he really has to combine all 3, so that way your lot meets your minimum square footage and lot width requirement, so that way he would meet the standard for approval for variances.
You have a recommendation?
Approve the 2 variances that are needed and have the others removed.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Well, you need to bring it back, or we could do that in the motion.
No. So if you approve these variances, then what I'll do is reach out to Triad Surveying. They'll correct this document, and then we'll go to signatures with the mayor and get this filed.
Okay. Any other questions, council? Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the variance request for 9F.
A motion on the floor, is there a second? A motion and a second. The second was by Mayor Pro Tem Perry. Motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor of said motion signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Action item 9G, consider take any necessary action to approve a change order to the contract with Alpha Paving for the resurfacing of O'Kelly Street. Tim?
So this is a request for a change order of $6,383.92. Just to give you a little bit of background for that. Remember that the last meeting, we had quite a crowd here, and we've been talking about O'Kelly now for, well, since I started. And at the last meeting, council authorized me to go ahead and spend up to $50,000 on O'Kelly. We were pursuing doing the chip and seal like they've done out here on 487 next to City Hall. And we were actually going to do that, and then the contractor came back and recommended that we wait until April to do that work because of the fact that the ground temperatures have to be 70 degrees and rising, and we were looking at some nighttime temperatures in the 50s, and so they recommended we wait till it warms back up. To move the project forward, we got a quote from them to do hot mix asphalt, and that contract was $46,986, and so we were moving forward with that. Part of that contract required our city crews to go out and actually mill that street down an inch and a half prior to them doing the overlay. We had a pre-construction meeting over there with Gerald and the contractor. There were some challenges that were going to be that the city was going to have to do that work that I didn't realize when I signed the contract originally. We can do it; it just wouldn't be as professionally done And by having the contract, at that meeting, the contractor offered to do that work for about $6,000. He's got, and gave us a quote for $6,383. By having him do that, he's going to be liable. He's going to be fully responsible for the project, so he can't point fingers, to say it's the problem because of the fact that he didn't do this part of the job. So.
And I think a couple of important things to notice is myself and Tim and Gerald met and discussed this as well, and I voiced my concerns that Tim just spoke about. As any of you know that are familiar with building roads, that you have to have the right grade on the road, and we weren't 100% confident, and that is no discredit to our city employees by all means, but that they don't build roads, okay, let's just face it. We weren't 100% confident that we could get that proper grade, and then we may potentially be setting ourselves up for another failure if we didn't follow this process. And yes, it's going to cost us a little more money, but I feel confident that we're finally going to get it right.
And the other issue was this was going to take our crews about 3 days, about 5 or 6 guys working on this over 3 days. The contractor indicated that they would come in with their equipment, which is a lot better than our equipment, and have it done in a day, and then come back the next day and put the surface on.
And
so it's not a $6,000 delta. It's about a $2,000 or $3,000 delta, not a $6,000, because we're new workers.
Right, we would have incurred some cost. And of note, give credit to Tim and Gerald, they worked very closely with this contractor to squeeze all the blood out of the turnip to get them down to this cost, because the initial quoted cost was much, much higher than this.
That price is locked until the spring when it warms up.
Well, they can do this.
They don't have to wait at all.
We don't have to wait at all for this.
And actually, if this is approved tonight, this will get done next week.
Okay.
Am I correct, Gerald?
I believe it's gonna be the week after Thanksgiving.
Oh, because of Thanksgiving, sorry.
Any other questions, comments? Consider a motion?
So the motion only needs to address the 6,000 or 6,300.
Yes, I already had signed the contract for the other.
Change order.
Change order motion.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the city manager to enter the change order in the amount of $6,383.92 for the additional work on Kelly Street to Alpha Paving.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? No discussion. We'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. 9H, consider taking any necessary action to authorize the city manager to have repairs made, excuse me, to the lateral sewer line at 202 West Cameron Avenue. That is the issue that you heard these two business owners speak about earlier in citizens communication. Tim?
Yeah, so this has been an ongoing problem since before I came, but when I became aware of it, and the situation is there's a lateral line that serves the bookshop that Mr. and Mrs. Shell run. When TxDOT came through a little over a year ago and redid the sidewalks through that area, it's believed that they damaged the existing sewer main. There's actually, looks like road rubble in the line, and they had it cameraed. Gerald has had his crews out there flushing it. We try to help residents, but it's in their lateral, and our city policy says that property owners are responsible, as Councilman Starnes knows, property owners are responsible to the lateral. We did try to reach out to TxDOT and their contractor to try to get them to accept responsibility unsuccessfully for this repair. And so I told Mr. and Mr. Shell that I would come to you because you would have the authority to override that and give me the authority to have Gerald's crews make these repairs.
So the TxDOT job, do we have any, are we paying any towards that at all?
No.
We could hold payment up till they talk to you about this.
That project is finished. I don't think the city paid anything for that. That was all a TxDOT job. Am I correct, Gerald?
That's correct. It's been over a year and it's been totally closed.
And it was a TxDOT contract so the contractor works for TxDOT, had a contract with TxDOT for the work.
Joe, you might remember this is way before Tim. This also happened on another individual in Rockdale. And I think it was Lee's Landing, the same thing.
Same thing.
And so, I mean, it was back and forth, and come to find out, did they ever help him out on that?
No.
No.
No, we wound up doing some of the work
Yeah.
as an exception, but, not what the contractor could do.
When whoever y'all got to scope the line identified how many feet it is away from wherever y'all went in?
We have it marked on the driveway right now. The jetter won't go to about 2 foot from the highway. That's where it stops. The hammer stops about 15 foot short of that. So somewhere in the 15 or 20 foot from the highway, going towards the highway, this is where the rumble starts, and that's clay pipe. And
The lateral's clay?
yes,
So what needs to be done? Cut the concrete and put a new line in?
basically what we're gonna do is cut it up and see what we find.
And how many feet do you project?
We'll start
15 maybe?
20.
20?
Probably about 3 foot, 4 foot wide.
And I didn't go to this tab. Is there a projected cost?
4.
And that's all in TxDOT right away.
We will have to get a permit from TxDOT for this.
Is it clay all the way up?
It's a little bit of cast start up near their property, right near the building, and then it turns into clay further down, but the majority of it is clay.
I know where you're going, that's the question.
Anytime you mess with the clay, as you know,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm very.
they're gonna have another problem where we stop, we fix this problem, and then in no time there's gonna be another problem right where we fixed up to that clay. It's just the nature of the clay.
I have a question, Gerald. Can we, I mean, once we uncover it and clear the existing rubble out, can you insert a sleeve inside the clay line?
No.
There are ways that they can do that. I don't know if I just put it in PVC. I don't know if the line goes to the street and it goes down, or if it goes out to the middle of the highway and it goes down. There's too many unknowns right now to really give you that.
Is the main under the sidewalk right now?
I'm sorry.
Is the main under the sidewalk?
The main's in the middle of the highway.
Oh, they didn't move that one?
No, we didn't move any of those.
Yeah, the main run down the middle of the highway, crossing the,
I thought that was part of the, not there?
No, there wasn't any water or sewer lines that, there was one sewer line up at Burleson that went across the highway that had to be corrected, but there were no sewer lines to be moved whatsoever, and the water was left off, and the city wound up paying for the cost of doing that.
I thought those were the ones we had to pump full of grout. That sewer line that was, so that we could abandon in
We
place.
abandoned one, but we didn't move anything out of the highway.
And
So if it's further, we're assuming it happened in that sidewalk, because that's where they did all the major work, was right there at the sidewalk. But if it's further into the highway, then what do we do? I guess, do we need to have somebody with a longer reach camera and identify exactly where that is before we go digging?
We can get there with the
problem is
camera.
the camera couldn't get through the rubble, right?
I thought you said it was short.
it's blocked.
As far as we could push it because of the things in the pipe.
And you're, what do you run, a 1,500, 3,000 PSI jet?
It's 2,500.
2,500 PSI jet? We didn't try anything. 10,000 PSI?
We'll blow the clay up.
Probably 8 or 10 times.
And that no dig, because it's collapsed, most likely, right? The clay's,
We believe the top of it's been
yeah.
flat.
So the no dig sleeve liner wouldn't be a possibility.
Gerald also came up with another alternative solution, but it would require the property owner to install a grinder pump and then a force main that would actually, instead of going to the main that's in the highway, would taking it over to, what's the road right next to that?
Burleson.
To Burleson.
There's not enough fall to go from where their clean out is to Burleson, but if they could dig a sump, put a 2-inch grinder pump in there, and then run a line of force main over to the middle of Burleson, and that would solve all the problems.
So what's the most cost-effective option if the city takes on the burden of this cost? What of those two, what's the most cost-effective option?
Well, the grinder pump is still within that same price range, but then you still gotta get a line from there, from the grinder over to
Yeah, we would
Burleson,
put
which goes
tap
all the
in.
way across their property.
What we would probably do, or I would recommend, is we would put a tap in, and then we would cut the street so that there's ability to run across there. It's concrete, and then they would get somebody to cut the hole from the trees from there to where the grinder pump would come over, and then it would just be a force main, 2-inch force main.
So what's the best option, your recommendation?
Yeah, because we
What's the best option?
If we opened that up in the driveway and saw what we were looking at, that would be the most cost-effective solution, as long as we didn't cause us to go out to the highway. If we find out that the line is collapsed all the way out in the middle of the highway, then that drives up the cost considerably.
And as Mr. Perry said, when you start chasing clay pipe, it just continues to crack and.
It just crumbles.
Yeah,
Let me
it's hard
touch it.
to find, sometimes it takes 8 or 10 feet to find a good piece that you can connect to. And if that happens, then we're under the highway for sure.
You have a recommendation?
I like the idea of doing a bump and putting it in the Burleson. One of my guys in discussing it said, came up with that, and I thought it was a great idea.
Could you horizontal? Where, could you horizontal drill from wherever they're over to Burleson, instead of cutting up their driveway, or having to cut that
I
driveway?
can't, but it can be done, certainly.
You're gonna have to dig a pit. Is there grass anywhere along there?
I'm sorry?
Would there be grass anywhere to dig a pit? You're either gonna be,
There might be a foot or two of it up on the east side of their property, but it's mostly concrete and asphalt.
where does the direction of where you're gonna have to dig a pit to do that? I don't know how big.
For the grinder pump?
For a directional board?
I think a 2-inch
We're not,
pipe, a 6-inch wide cut through there is probably the best way to go, the cheapest way to go. But I can certainly get a price for it.
where's the main on Burleson? Is it
Right in the middle of
Right in the middle of Burleson.
Why did you do that?
I would like, I don't want to delay y'all at all, but I would like to at least look at that option because I feel like we're chasing our tail when we start messing with that clay pipe. And we're gonna end up right out in the middle of the highway and have a big mess.
I think we were about, what was the cost on the Burleson option, wasn't it about 12,000?
I have not costed it.
You sent me something, I thought.
Where does the sewer exit that property or exit the building?
Back to the door.
Yeah, it's at the beginning of, where the parking, lots are. It's right there beside that in the middle of the building.
In
On the
front?
In the front.
Front? Okay. So you're gonna have to dig up some sidewalk there to bury that grinder pump there.
I think you could go parallel to it and get out there, but
Oh, okay.
it'd have to be looked at. We haven't dug deep into designing it, but it's just recommendation that we brought up.
So what would be the timeline? Because obviously we're causing some business operational concerns for these folks.
When you say we, you say TxDOT.
TxDOT is causing some business operational problems.
For us, for the city, I mean, we could break it up and put a tap in there in a day and then have to get somebody to put some concrete back in there. Then whoever's gonna pay for the,
Grinder pump,
grind this on the
unfortunately.
grinder pump and then run the line across, that would have to be determined because that is not part of the normal responsibility for the city.
But it doesn't have to be very deep because
No.
it's pressured. It's pumping, not draining.
I would probably recommend that they would pay for the grinder pump and we would install it, because they're gonna own that, they're gonna have to maintain it, and at some point, I don't know how long those last, 10 or 20 years, they're gonna have to replace it.
I'm fine with that. I mean, the city pay for it and then they'll be responsible for the force main and the grinder pump in perpetuity.
For the maintenance of it.
Or replacement, yes.
Oh, if it fails.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts, comments, concerns?
That little line of the city main.
I'm not exactly certain what was just proposed.
There's been a lot of discussion. So I think the last proposal was potentially the city pays to install a grinder pump in the line to the sewer line over on Burleson Street. No?
No, Gerald's suggesting that they pay for the pump and we pay for the tap in the line, or at least the tap.
Or whatever you wanna do. I've asked,
Tim?
What does a grinder pump run,
haven't bought one,
$1,200?
No, they're more than that.
They're about $2,200. We installed one on our pool house.
yeah, I think that's closer.
So, I mean, doing what Gerald is suggesting, probably the city's gonna be into it about $5,000 or $6,000. Plus and then you have the cost of the grinder pump itself. And the reason I was suggesting, because the fact that whatever grinder pump goes in there, they're gonna have to maintain. So, I
Well,
don't know.
if we want to pay for all of it, then at least there's electrical has to be run to it from the building to operate that pump. At least that burden be bared by the building owner.
If you vote to authorize me to do that, I will have Barbara put together some kind of agreement with them that I could sign, and we can move forward and make that repair.
That sounds like a plan to me.
Okay. Would you like to say anything?
So much better than where I am now.
It just seems like a quicker solution and something that's for sure versus like,
The most feasible
Yeah.
solution.
What do we need to do with the existing? Just abandon it? Plug it at the end and abandon it?
great.
So Tim, you and Gerald will coordinate on this if it gets approved?
Yes.
Okay. Council, questions, comments, motion?
This does not change the city's policy.
Right.
Right, this is accentuating
Conditions of the
circumstances.
situation where
Yeah.
that the damages were caused by TxDOT and their contractor that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the city manager and Public Works to make the repairs and the city bear the cost of the pump, the line installation and the tap, and the property owners bear the cost of the electricity and the operation of that pump.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? I do actually have some discussion. And I'm not trying to be belaboring, but Tim, would it be fair for you to reach out to TxDOT one more time and say, hey, here's what we're doing to fix what you broke? Are you willing to participate in this?
I will do that.
Thank you.
That's fair, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion, further discussion? Being no vote, all in favor of said motion, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. 7:20 PM, we are now convening into executive session under sections 551072 and 551087 to 1, deliberate about purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property for the purpose of commercial development at 1166 West Highway 79. 2, deliberate about economic development negotiations regarding development agreement for Republic Ridge. 3, deliberate about economic development negotiations related to the H.H. Caulfield Airport. 7:20 p.m. We are now convening into executive session.
11A.
We are ready to reconvene back in open session effective 8:45 p.m. We will start with item 11 on the agenda. Item 11A is regarding Republic Ridge. Consider take any necessary action on a deposit and reimbursement agreement with Republic Ridge LLC for the funding of soft costs regarding the development of the PUD, TERS, and PID for Republic Ridge subdivision. Tim?
Yes, this is an agreement similar to what was done with Cornerstone that requires the developer to deposit $20,000 into an escrow account to be used for those costs and to replenish that fund as when it falls below a certain amount. And so I do recommend approval of this.
Okay, I have a motion that we approve line item 11A as read.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 11B, consider taking any necessary action on the development agreement with Republic Ridge LLC for the development of the Republic Ridge subdivision. Tim?
This development agreement is with Republic Ridge LLC. They're working on a 234-lot subdivision, 30 and 40-foot lots. The subdivision will include concrete streets within the subdivision, construction of a neighborhood park with playground amenities. All utilities will be underground. It includes the improvements with 12-foot travel lanes on Texas Street that'll be resurfaced with asphalt, and on Lee Street will actually mirror the interior of the road, so it'll be concrete. And then they have about $550,000 of off-site sewer improvements that they'll have to make to serve the subdivision. And they've also agreed to mill and repave Belton from Texas Street to Green Street. And they're looking at a TERS of 50% with a tax stack of 3.02 that would allow the required developer funding of $3.58 million into the project. The PID funds available for construction would be about $4 million, and it will they've estimated an approximately $58 million in assessed value once full build out occurs.
Council, any questions for Tim? I'll entertain action on item 11B.
I'll make a motion that we approve the development agreement for 11B.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It was Esmeralda that made that second. I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 11C, Tim.
11C is the second reading of an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance for the planned unit development necessary for this subdivision to take place. This was something that was discussed at the last meeting and is consistent with the proposed development that we've been talking about.
Council, any questions for Tim regarding item 11C? Entertain any action on item 11C.
I move that 11C. Oh, I can't talk anymore. Go ahead, Scott.
Make a motion that we take Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation and approve of the second reading for 11C.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 11D, consider taking any necessary action on a contract with P3 Works LLC for the creation and administration of the Public Improvement District and the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone for the Republic Ridge subdivision. Tim?
P3 is the company that the city is working with for the establishment of the PID and the TERS and administration of those two instruments, or those two, what do you call them, Barb? The economic development mechanisms. They will help assist us in administering those. I can't think of the word. I don't know. Anyways, they will help us with the PID and the TERS, getting those set up. The city has worked with them before successfully, so I recommend approval.
Thank you, Tim. Council, any questions for Tim regarding that item D, 11D? I'll entertain action.
I'll make a motion that we approve 11D as read.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Motion and a second on the floor to approve item 11D is read. Is there any discussion? Being no discussion, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 11E, Tim.
11E is consider and take necessary action on a resolution accepting a petition for and calling a public hearing for the creation of a PID for the Republic Ridge subdivision. Republic Ridge LLC has submitted a petition to the city for this PID. Notification is required there. That is being made regarding a public hearing. We are required to have a public hearing prior to considering action on that. So I do recommend approval of that resolution.
Council, any questions for Tim? I'll entertain action on item 11E.
Make a motion that council approve the resolution for item 11E.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. Item 11F, Tim.
Consider action on a resolution setting a date for a public hearing for the establishment of TERS number 3 in association with Republic Ridge. This is in accordance with the development agreement. Again, we are proposing 50% TERS to buy down the PID assessment on that subdivision. It requires a public hearing, and so this sets the date for that public hearing on December 9th.
We have a very, very elementary question over here. What's TERS number 1 and 2?
Is number one Cornerstone?
TERS number 1 is the Cornerstone TERS, and TERS number 2 actually runs
Okay,
along 79 through downtown.
Gotcha. There you go.
Any other questions, council?
No. Well, I don't have any.
Thank you, Tim. Council, any other questions for Tim? I'll entertain action on this item.
Scott, you done well so far.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution for 11F as read.
I have a motion on the floor to approve item 11F as read. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes. We're adjourned at 8:52 PM.